the main things I want them to be demanding, but yet respectful. I want them to be high maintenance and bougie. We want people who know what they want, have their meal sent back if it's not cooked right. Who are going to ask for crazy things that's going to make the crew run around, because the whole show is about the crew taking care of them. So the more demanding and, crazy things that the guests ask for, the better the show's going to be.
Hey, welcome to the Unscripted Files. My name is Madeline Cunningham. I'm a development producer in the unscripted industry, bringing you candid conversations with the minds behind your favorite form of entertainment. When you look at every housewife, every Shep Rose, every Ariana Madix, every Scandival, someone discovered your favorite reality star and they don't get enough love. I have a casting director who is responsible for booking all of the guests, the charter guests on the Below Deck franchise, as well as in the Vanderpump Villa. She is a former professional dancer who was on tour with Wade Robson and Justin Timberlake, who has amazing stories from that life and her job as a casting director on those upstairs, downstairs franchises, where her job is to find the right guests to challenge our crew, challenge our cast, and still be really, really entertaining. This is such a fun conversation with casting director Tracy Sinclair. Tracy, welcome to the Unscripted Files. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm super excited to chat with you. You have so many amazing credits, the Below Deck franchise, Vanderpump Villa, World of Dance, amazing primetime game shows, Press Your Luck, Password. I mean, the list goes on and on. But you weren't always in casting. So I'd love to hear a little bit of your backstory. You were a professional dancer, went on to be a dance agent, a choreographer. So tell me, give me a little of the Tracy Sinclair backstory before we get into the casting.
I mean, I've been dancing since I was 3. I was like captain of my high school dance team. I got a dance scholarship to Cal State Long Beach. I was on their dance team. And then I got my dream job at 18 at Disneyland. I was I was in original cast Lion King. I was in original cast Hercules. I did the Christmas parades. I did Mulan. I did special events. An amazing time. I had my first daughter when I was doing Lion King. I was young. I was 21. And I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. It doesn't pay well enough. I'm going to move to LA. Because at that time, my dream was to be in a music video. Like that was like,
of course.
And I remember I was taking a dance class to some lady in LA and she was like, so what do you want to be? I was like, I want to be in a music video. She's like, you need to want more. Like, that's not a high goal. And I was like, okay. Because one of my teachers at Long Beach State was in Michael Jackson's Thriller, and I watched that video like over and over.
Iconic.
So yeah, so then I started working actually at a talent agency, and one of the top choreographers, Wade Robson, was one of their clients, and I took his class. I stood in line every weekend and took his class, and I actually became friends with him and his mom. And then they asked me to leave the agency and come be Wade's assistant, and I was like, okay. Actually, they asked me to go to Neverland Ranch. I mean, this is obviously before all the Michael Jackson stuff.
Sure.
And my boss wouldn't let me go. And I was like, when do you get invited to So Wade's mom was like, well, just quit and we'll hire you. So I was like, okay. So I quit. I went to Neverland Ranch and then I kind of was her assistant for a while. And then Wade was doing NSYNC and Britney Spears. And I started working for him and I was with him for like 5 years. So I was like, on the tour. When I look at my 20s, like I was like backstage in the prayer circle holding like Justin Timberlake's hand and not even realizing how cool that was.
That's some crazy lore. Like that's so amazing.
I mean, yeah. And Britney was around. My daughter's name was Brittany and she was little. And so she met Brittany and Justin would play hide and go seek with her because he was always at Wade's house. And so just crazy world. And then eventually, I moved on. I became a dance agent at Wade's agency. He kind of had a lot of stuff going on and kind of had to break down and moved away. And we still stay in touch. He lives in Maui. So I actually just saw him a couple years ago. And so I became a dance agent, which I hated because I was still a dancer at heart and it was all my friends that I was sending out on calls and technically I couldn't be a dancer as a single mom. At that time, the best job was to go on tour, and I couldn't leave my daughter.
Right.
And so I was sending all my friends out on calls, and
That
it
you
just was,
wanted.
it was awful. So
That's heartbreaking.
I mean, I did it for a year. I was good at it, but yeah. And then I decided to leave the business. I moved back. My family was in Orange County. I moved back there, stayed there a couple years, had my other daughter. And then I don't know, my husband and I we were separated, and I felt like something was missing. And my mom said to me, what do you want to do? I said, I want to be back in LA. I want to be back in the industry. I've been in the industry my entire life. So she's like, do it. So I did. I got my first casting job off Craigslist. I literally was searching Craigslist going entertainment industry. And this one came up and it said looking for a casting assistant. And I was like, what's that? And it was like casting reality shows and game shows. And I was like, okay. So I sent my resume in. Well, they ended up being huge fans of Wade. So they saw that Wade actually had the first dance show, the Wade Robson Project on MTV.
Oh, right.
Yes. Do you remember that? And
I know Wade from So You Think You Can Dance. So
yeah. So he was the first dance show ever was the Wade Robson Project. Right. And that's where like we found Twitch. You know, we had all the best. I know. I got to hang out with him on set at World of Dance because he was a guest judge.
Right.
But I was on set. We filmed in LA, so I was on that entire set. So just a cool, yeah. What was my point?
Really cool world. So
then I got into casting. So I got it. So the owners like loved Wade, so they brought me in. The funny thing is one of the owners was a girl that I used to work at Guess in the Beverly Center when I was like 22, and she worked with me there. And so she was one of the owners of the company. So she was like, Tracy, I'm like, oh my God. So they hired me on the spot. I was an assistant. I didn't really know what I was doing, but yeah, I picked it up. Listen, I'm a judgy person. I'm always judging people, and I learned how to do it for a living. Like I'm really good. I'm really into energy, and I just know it. It's funny because like my boss for the game shows, he would always have me head up the kind of the bullpen is where he would hire all new people. And like the first day he'd call me in, he's like, all right, who tell me who you like. So I'd be like, she's not going to be good. Hard worker, and usually I'm right. Like
you have a great intuition.
Very and I just have a good perspective. And
what's your star sign?
Gemini. I'm like Gemini Cancer.
Yeah.
So I kind of have both. So yeah. So and then I started where I was with them for like a year, and then they didn't have any other shows. I did the show in New York with them. So then I went and did Dating Naked.
I saw that in your credits. I was like, wait a second.
Awful.
Did you have to see genitalia in the casting process?
Yeah. I mean, are you allowed to cuss on this?
Yeah.
Say bad words? Okay. Yeah. I would open up my emails every morning to dick pics.
Unsolicited.
And I was
actually solicited.
Yeah. Like, I'm not asking for these. Like, I need to interview you first.
Right.
Like the very end part when we pick the top people, they do have to come in. I'm not there, but they do have to come in naked to like a callback type thing. But I'm like, I don't need to see that. So, but during that job, one of the guys I'd worked with at this other job called me and he's like, hey, my friend's doing this new show Below Deck. He needs like a casting associate. And I was like, well, what is it? And he's like, it's so easy. You just have to find guests to go on a luxury yacht. I was like, oh, that's easy. So I called my sister and she's like, oh no, it's such a good show. Cause it was only on season 2, I think. And she's like, it's amazing. So I was like, all right. So I told him I'd do it. And then found out that, oh, it's not easy. You got to find guests to pay. Like they have to pay $70,000 to charter the yacht.
And be entertaining and fit the bill.
And most wealthy people who have the money to do that are very private. They don't want cameras in their face. But the cool thing about the show is the cameras aren't really in the guest's face if you look at it. It's really about the crew. Sometimes you don't even know all the guests' names. You don't know where they live. You don't know what they do for a living. So it's that there's literally like 5% of people that are perfect for the guests, you know?
Right. But you find them.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm really good at researching. There's so many people in casting that are so lazy and they just sit back I love to research. I like Google, I look up articles. I can find anything. So yeah, my first season, I found all the guests on Facebook. Believe it or not.
Are you looking at like who's buying a table, a VIP section somewhere and getting their tag? How are you doing it?
You know what I was doing? I was going through, I don't even know where I'd start, but I would like go through friends who I knew had money,
Hmm.
and then I'd go through their friends. And then I'd go through those people's friends and I would just look at the pictures and I can tell, I can see if I'm into shoes and purses. So I can tell if you've got nice shoes on, if you're holding, a purse that's like six figures, I would look at the background. I could tell, the people who try to look rich usually aren't rich. It's
Right.
the people who don't try. So and then I would just reach out and then I would find people who would maybe know of the show or would be interested because it's really hard when you reach out to people who don't know the show because you're like, you want me to pay money to be on a show? Like it doesn't, that's what I get all the time.
Hmm.
And I was like, no, you're paying actually like 60% less than you would normally charter a yacht. It's just because there's cameras. So yeah, that's how I got people. And then I kind of went through a time where I went after businesses. I would look on Forbes 30 under 30. I would go after those people. I would go after businesses like, hey, it's great promotion. You could bring your new tequila brand on. So first season I did
Smart.
that. Second season they called me and they said, the producer that you worked for, he's busy. This is when we were still in the office because no one's in offices now. We all work remotely,
Right.
right? So you can do multiple. But they said, he's busy. Do you think you could be the casting producer? And I'd only been a casting associate for like under 2 years. And I was like, I don't know, like, and he's like, well, how many of the groups did you find last season? I said, I found all of them. And he's like, you did? Producer do. And I said, he just interviewed. He's like, well, then you can be the casting producer if you found them all. I was like, okay. So the rest is history. 10 years. I think I'm on my 29th season. I've been there 10 years. Now I'm the
Wild.
supervising casting director. I have my team's very small. I have a producer and an editor. That's it. Now the crew casting has a huge team, which I
Sure.
don't get why I don't have a huge team, but
Yeah, you're like, hello.
but it's because I'm a workaholic and I do everything
Right.
myself. So they're like, we don't need to pay more money, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, what an incredible arc, like that, and on such an iconic show. I'm so fascinated, about how your because I know so much of casting is research. It is like really getting in there. And so, how has it evolved? You said early days, it's like Facebook articles. How has social media and Instagram and TikTok, has it influenced your process at all? Or are you still really back to the OG, like looking at tags of tags,
No, I don't have to research at all. I get emails daily.
They're coming to you.
Yeah, my
Love that.
email is on Bravo's website. So people go into casting, it'll say below deck. So I get referrals, people who've gone. Every guest that goes on wants to come back.
What a
They all
testament to the show, also.
right. They all because it's such a different. So the show is very real. It's not scripted. It's not staged. It is. I think it's a genius show because the crew obviously I feel like the show depends on the crew. The crew's got to be good. But the guest, we never know. I'm the only one that meets the guests. Like I Zoom them and then I decide if I feel like they're going to be good and then I send them to Bravo for final approval. But nobody meets them until they get there. We don't know how they're going to be.
Right, you're not briefing them on
right.
anything.
I mean, I do like a half an hour interview, and I can tell like if they're quiet and boring, no, I don't send it to Bravo. I want people who are going to have energy, but we never know. It's always like the one quiet person out of the 8 that I'm interviewing that's the one that gets drunk and like jumps off the yacht.
Jumps off the boat.
Problems. Right, like Dolores.
Dolores.
Like, she was my favorite, but she barely talked in the interview. Like you never know how they're going to be, and I think that's what I think the more the show goes on, I feel like a lot of the execs and stuff, they forget that these people are paying. So they come on and they're not cast members. They're actually guests. So they get treated like guests. They can do whatever they want. And it's a cool experience. So a lot of guests will send referrals. Hey, Tracy, I've got a friend. I've got this, CEO of this company. So I get a lot of referrals. I get a lot of celebs, they're managers, but they don't want to pay. They think they really love the show, but like they don't want to pay.
Right. And you're like, oh,
sometimes
sorry,
I get a lot of
to.
like, if I do get celebs, it's normally like a normal group that's like, oh, I'm friends with so-and-so and I'm bringing them and they pay for them. But yeah, I get people just reach out to me once in a while. Like I'll go on Instagram or if I see like on TMZ, some rich guy sold his house, I'll reach out once in a while. And I've reached out to, I feel like Bravo, the longer the show goes, they really want more like celebs on. but that's hard just
Well,
because they
totally.
either want to be paid or they don't want it comped.
Right. Right. Well, I mean, the fact, so they're coming to you, and then you're saying you're doing like kind of like a 30-minute interview, and then you can decide from there. Do you have any red flags, or do you have any sort of like, you said that you have a really good intuition, with just that 30 minutes before you pass them on or don't. Is there any sort of things that you love to see versus, red flags when it comes to whether they're right for the show or not?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny when I first started, it was like if I could just find full paying, I didn't care. Like
Right.
they just wanted real guests, real people who had money who would charter yachts. Then as it got more and more, it was like, we don't want fans, which was a crazy thing to me because I'm like, well, you think I'm just going to get random people who have no idea what the show is to come on? Like there's at least one person that's a fan of the show, but it doesn't mean they're poor. Like they're, they still have money. But I do look at, when my producer sends them like a Zoom, outline how to be set up. And we always say, make sure you look nice. The Bravo is looking at these tapes and they want to think this group would normally charter a yacht. So I immediately will look at what they're, even though I just see waist up, but I can tell. And I
Right.
see, I look at their background. So I can I'm pretty good telling if they're bullshitters, like if they look like they have money or if they don't have money. I'm pretty good at that. For
I feel
sure,
like tech guys can be tricky though, because they all like drive Toyota Corollas.
they
and
could,
like,
yeah, they could. Yeah. Well, and listen, I will always interview a group. Sometimes it's not a long interview. But I just sense it. I don't know.
right.
If someone is rude to me, I won't even, I've had some people like I think they try to be like, they think that's what we want, but like, I don't want mean guests. And
Right.
God forbid, I watch the show as a fan of the show because I don't know how the guests are. Unless there's something big drama that happens, I'll hear. So I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how the guests are. So I watch it. And there's always one group that's so mean. And I'm like, they were so great in the interview, but you never know
Right.
how they're going to be, and I don't like the mean people. So if anyone's mean, that's a red flag. I think like that's going to make me go, oh, good TV. I don't send them to Bravo.
Have you seen a lot? There's a lot of people who, are maybe in like the service industry or high-end industries who will talk about the differences in millionaires and billionaires, about like where they're like, typically people who are incredibly wealthy are the nicest, most down-to-earth people ever. And then the people who are kind of, it'll be
Trying
a
to be
stretch for
wealthy.
them to get there,
Right.
are like rude, needy, all the things, and they're almost like putting on. Do you kind of
Right.
feel that
Well,
way too?
I find the people who aren't born with wealth but are wealthy now are so down to earth and they are like thankful for everything they have. I think the people that are born into it, whether it's inheritance or, just family money, they're usually, they don't care,
Oh, so like a new money, old money kind of difference
Right.
that you see.
Right.
Oh,
Right.
interesting.
Yeah.
So
But
when you
I do,
finally,
sorry.
go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I do find the really, really wealthy people though are always very nice,
Hmm.
but they
Yeah,
also don't want to look bad, you know, because they've
sure.
got companies they're running and all that. So.
Right. When you're looking at guests, again, like they obviously have to check the box of being able to pay for it. They need to, act a certain way. But are you thinking about how they'll interact with the crew specifically and like if their personalities will mesh or clash? Or is for you, you're just like, if you could charter it and you're not an asshole, let's go.
Yeah, I don't know who the crew is. They keep that very top secret. So
Oh,
they're casting the same time I am. So I only know who the captain is. I don't know who the chef is, the bosun. I don't know if they're bringing anyone back. So
nice.
that has nothing to do with it. The main things I want them to be demanding but yet respectful, right? I want them to be high maintenance and bougie. We want people who know what they want and who are going to act like guests and not just get on there and be fanning out. We want people who will ask have their meal sent back if it's not cooked right, who are going to ask for crazy things that's going to make the crew run around because the whole show is about the crew taking care of them. So the more demanding and, crazy things the guests ask for, the better the show's going to be. If they're just nice and quiet and like, oh, we're just happy with whatever you get me, the crew's going to slack off and it's going to be boring.
Right. Well, it
So
ultimately needs to be a challenge in hospitality.
for sure.
If you've ever worked in hospitality, you know that it can be incredibly tough, a lot of
Right.
demands. And so I like that it's like ultimately, can the guests respectfully give the crew a run for their money and
Right.
see if they can really give that 5-star experience?
Right. Yeah. And then also the hard part is too, is like I get all these wealthy people who are very like prim and proper, but we also want people who are going to get drunk and party, you know?
Yeah.
So
Jump
it's
off the
like,
boat.
so, right. So usually that's more the younger age,
Mm,
which then it's hard to find because the younger age doesn't really, unless you get like I had a group of influencers, like all 20s, and they all flaked because those 20-year-olds just flaked. But they were great. And I was like, they would have been amazing, but they just
right.
flaked. I like sent contracts to this, ghosted me. I was like, okay, bye. But it's usually like the 30s. That's like the core age. That's good. If they're a little bit older than that, sometimes they can get crazy, but normally they're
They
pretty
kind of keep
calm.
it. They keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The digital
Yeah.
footprint is forever. So when you
Right.
say you watch the show back, what is the measure of success for you as a casting director? Is it that it was a entertaining episode? Like when you're watching, what really makes you feel like that was successful for you?
If I so I'm very like multitasking. Like I have the TV on now while I'm working, but if I can watch the show and not go on my phone and not get distracted, then I know it's good. I think the show, I think it is starting to rely a lot more on the guests because I feel like the crew is not as strong, as the OG, like Kate and Ben and Captain Lee. Like I feel like, but I think the crew casting is hard because I think in the yacht world, a lot of people don't want to be on TV. So I think they're trying to rely more on these amazing guests, which I keep saying, just don't have them pay and then I can find you crazy guests,
Right. Yeah. Lower the
But
rate,
then,
guys.
right. But then it's going to be, but I think then it's not going to be real because it's going to be people who aren't used to 5-star service. So I get, but then it's like a toss up. You never know if these people are going to be great or not. So yeah, I mean, sometimes I watch and they're boring and they don't show a lot. When they don't show a lot of the guests, that means they're boring. If there's a
Mm.
shows half the guests and the guests are causing drama or they're just fun or they're demanding, like that's great. Like there was a group on, I think it was last season, and like the lady was kind of rude and then she got stung by a jellyfish and like even though I didn't like that she was rude, it was
Like
entertaining.
cosmic karma.
Right. And that was a tough group to deal with. Like my producer and I were like, oh, I mean, it doesn't shock me. They were hard to deal with, but I thought that was a good group. But I always love, it's funny. I always love the groups that are just so nice and just fun. Like when they're kind of mean and drama, I know like Bravo probably likes that more, but I don't like that. I'm uncomfortable watching that. And then I actually get upset because I'm like, I never would have put them on if I knew they were going to be rude.
Right.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
totally.
if they're fun and yeah, that's when I'm like, okay, that's a good group.
Yeah.
And
Do you
sometimes
have
the groups I think are going to be good aren't. That makes me upset.
well, I was going to ask you, you mentioned that your most quiet, person of the season ended up jumping off drunk. Like,
That
have
was
you
probably one of
ever
my favorite episodes,
have
Dolores.
you ever watched back and been like, where was that? Like what on either end of the spectrum and just been like kind of shocked at how it turned out based on your experience with them?
Oh yeah, because there was one group where the girl like came on the yacht and she was like, I don't know, she had been taking medication and she was so drunk and they had to take her out on that canoe. I don't even remember. It was years ago. And they had to like put her on the water and she was like the most normal, calm person. You never know. You just
Yeah.
don't know with these people. You don't know. I think there was another like realtor group and I think the husband and wife were fighting and the key was so mean to her, but like the nicest people in the interview. But I think that's why sometimes alcohol causes that.
Yes.
And
Well,
most people are drinking when I interview them, which is funny because they're so nervous. But I'm like, I'm very cool. Like, I'm not like this hoity-toity casting director. Like, I feel
right.
like that's one of my gifts is I can make them feel really like I'm normal. This is calm.
Hmm.
But everyone's drinking. I think they all get nervous. So,
That's funny. I wonder if they're like, well, let's get into the environment here.
right, right.
Well, and I imagine that, it is some money, whether you have a lot of it or not, to have that experience. And so the indulgences like escalate and the
Right.
expectations thus are like very, very high. So, oh, that's so funny. So has a guest, I mean, I know this is true, like guests getting like kicked off or removed during filming. Like, what's the protocol in situations like that? Are you ever aware of that or does it just come back to you?
No, I mean, I know, I think like during the pandemic, so we filmed this during the pandemic, which was crazy. and we had to quarantine guests for like a week on the island where we were filming. And you would have thought that would have been the hardest season, but it was the easiest because people wanted to get away, and we would put them in a villa. Like, it was great. But like for that, someone got tested for COVID, or no, he had a fever, I think. So they had to take him off, right? I don't know. I don't think anyone's actually been ejected from the yacht that I know of. Has there? Besides the one she was taken to the hospital. I mean, it just depends. There's no like list of things it's just we go by what happens. I usually will hear about it when it happens, or if I have to do something, they'll text me or email me because I'm never on location. But I mean, I feel like what's happened more is not that guests get kicked off, is that like they can't leave the dock because of the weather. So then you get all the angry guests who've paid for the yacht and are just sitting at the dock. That's happened. I swear that happens once a season. There's always bad weather. But they don't refund their money.
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
like, sorry.
they still feed them. Yeah, they still feed them and try to make it, but yeah, as far as I think, because I don't think Dolores got kicked off. Did Dolores get kicked off? I don't think she did. I
I
know
don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think Captain Lee, and I don't think they've had any, usually if you have drugs, they'll kick you off, but I can't remember
Yes.
anyone getting actually kicked off, but I could be
No,
wrong.
I
There's
think
so
they'll just
many.
like go back to land and like, kind of be like, okay, this is done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I'm just can't imagine. I know the myriad of guests and personalities that you must encounter is so colorful. What is the biggest differences? Because you do below deck sailing, below deck Mediterranean. Is there a big difference in how you approach each of those spinoffs, or does it kind of feel pretty standard?
Right. I get different directions. So for sailing, they really want avid sailors because
Mm.
obviously you see when it sails. You also see it only sails like 5 minutes, an episode. But they really want people who love sailing, because when you get people who don't love sailing, they usually complain. And so I kind of have to go. We did sailing. I think it was in Spain, and there was like the big regatta there. So I did research there, and I had my producer like reaching out to people that were racing or like fans. There was like a yacht club that was all the people. So I was trying to reach out there, but sailing's probably the only one that's really, really different. Caribbean is the same. Down Under. So Down Under's been a little difficult because Down Under, the first two seasons was filmed in Australia, but it is
Mm.
just so hard to film in Australia. You have to get visas for everyone, including the guests. It's just a lot of money. So like the one that's on right now, they filmed in the Seychelles, which is in Australia. And the one coming up is not in Australia. So I think they're getting away from Australia. So when I did they didn't have me do season one because they said we only want Australia guests. So they hired this casting director in Australia. They hired me to consult her to help her figure out how to do it. She didn't want to listen to me. She had an ego and did not
Mhm.
want to listen. And I was like, this is like no show you've done before. There's no show on the planet that makes people pay. I'm
Mhm.
telling you, this is how you have to do it. I know what I'm doing. She did not want to listen to me. So she ended up like, I think they had to like, I don't know what they did, but they brought me back for season two
Yeah.
and had me
You're like,
do it.
I don't know
And
what happened, but I was back.
right. And I was able to find Australian guests. I found a couple American, but that I did have to research for that one. So that one,
Yeah.
if it's in specific areas, every season I also have to find local groups in case there's an emergency or a group backs up. So I have to
Right.
find people in Greece, Italy. So like I do have to, my producer and I reach out for people for that. But yeah, normally, I mean, I'll get direction from Bravo. They'll say we want a real young group or we want a group that's going to get married. Sometimes they'll give me a little notes. They love international groups. So a lot of times in med, they always want me to have at least one group that's international. But yeah, and other than that, it's just kind of the same. And I literally, anyone that emails me, I'll interview them because I don't know. And it's like fun because then I wait for them to show up and I'm like, oh, they look good, or oh, they look crappy,
Yeah.
like
You're
I
like,
never know.
what's
Yeah,
the
I
over
never
under
I
here?
know. I was like, is it, I get a lot of white groups. So I love diversity. So when I get ethnic groups, fabulous. I think white people are boring,
We
if
are.
I get couple groups,
Ooh.
couple groups. And I love all girl groups, but sometimes I get too many all girl groups. So I
Mhm.
love an all male group. They're rare. but all male groups are great. So yeah, so it's fun. It's kind of like I sit and I just wait for the windows to pop up and I'm like, oh, this group looks great.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't look that great, but then I'll interview them and they're so good. So
They
sometimes
just
I
pop.
have
They
to,
pop differently.
right. And sometimes
Yeah.
I've had to tell groups like, hey, like this couple, like not TV friendly. So like you got to switch them out because Bravo won't approve them. And I've said that. I'm very
Mm,
upfront and,
yeah.
and I'm nice about it, but I was like, Bravo looks at looks. There's no way that, this one couple is going to pass. And then sometimes we tell them to dress nice and people are in tank tops and hats. And I'm like,
Right. Well, I think
so,
it's regardless, like, if we like, there's a dress code for any fine dining restaurant, right? So,
right,
like, if you're coming in for an interview for that restaurant, you would dress a
right,
certain way, like, same
right.
way with you as a casting director. So, I think that, I don't know, I am all for that. Like, you have to keep up the tone and appearance of the show and, like, know what the DNA is to make sure people are kind of falling within that.
Right. And it's not like we look for models,
No,
like
but
we just and it's not
compelling.
like I'm like, "Oh, you're ugly." That's not it. So it's like they want to be, "Oh, this group looks great."
Right. Well, and it's
So,
again, it's a measure of your own choices too. So if
right.
you're sending along stuff that you're like,
Right.
it has to be the whole package, I'm sure. Like you are such a
For
you're a person
sure.
who reads energy, so
Right.
it's the way people look, but it's also just the way they present and like if they're going to be able to helm an episode alongside the crew.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
Right.
Is there a favorite? I know you said Dolores is one of your favorites. Is there another favorite group that you've had on any of the franchises?
I loved Johnny Damon. He was a
Mm.
baseball player. He like
Mm-hmm.
peed off the side of the yacht. It was amazing. I
Oh wait, I
love
think
his
I saw
wife.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I love, they've been on twice. His wife, Michelle's great.
Nice.
She always sends me people. Like, she'll call me. She's like, we're at a golf tournament. And like, she like called me once and FaceTime me, and Joey Fatone was on FaceTime. And I was like, Joey, I know you. I was on
Right.
like the set. I was on the set I actually danced in one of NSYNC's videos in Pop. And Joey got hurt in that video shoot, so Wade had to replace him. So I was like, he's like, I wouldn't go on Below Deck. I don't want people to see me. And I was like, okay, but Lance, like, I've been trying to get Lance on because he wants to go, but he has his kids now.
Yeah,
So
are kids allowed? No.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, they
we've
are.
had a newborn on.
Oh,
We've had my other
I didn't
favorite
realize that.
guest. We had oh God, I can't think of his name. Sorry, hold on. His dad was a singer. What is his last name? This is my old age giving me. His dad sang Pretty Woman. Orbisons, the Orbisons. I love
Mm,
them. Asa, she's from like Germany and they brought all their kids. They've been on like 3 times. They're like
okay.
huge Below Deck fans, but also like come from money, live in Malibu. I was trying to get them on a season ago and they were going to bring the Osbournes, but Jack ended up getting a show. I interviewed Jack. He was great. So it's like you get
What a
couples of people
treat.
like that, and then they always have friends that are on. I mean, some
Yeah.
of the people I've interviewed has been amazing, but it's just hard to get them on. But they're a great family. They like have Below Deck shirts, and they're just so
Oh,
sweet.
I
So
love that.
yeah, and their
Oh,
kids
that's
like
so
love
cool.
Captain Sandy, and yeah, that they're a good. So I love families. I love families with kids because it brings a whole other dynamic for the crew.
Yeah.
They got to keep the
Yeah,
kids
catering to
busy.
kids and like,
And the chef's got to make food the kids like, not
yeah,
fancy food. So yeah, I definitely
makes
think
sense.
that's a good dynamic to have.
That's so interesting. Well, let's get into Vanderpump Villa because
Yes.
it has a similar upstairs, sort of downstairs format. I was refreshing on it today. I love all things Vanderpump. And it's in the Bravo universe.
Do you
And
like
so
the
what
Valley? Do you like the Valley too, though?
I have not tuned
So,
into the
so
Valley.
good. You got to
But I've
watch it.
heard good things.
It's
I've been
good.
on Southern Charm and Southern Hospitality was like the new franchise I got into, but I want to get into the Valley. I've obviously
I
seen all the press, like with,
right. Oh,
Brittany and
Jack.
Jackson.
Well, so I just left California. I bought a house in Nevada. I'm in like this small farm town, but I love it. I'm like near Lake Tahoe. But I was living in Valley Village and I lived a street away from Jack's. And he would be walking his son like always by my house. And I always decorate my house like full out. So he'd always be like, oh my God, your house looks so good. But I always saw Jax and Brittany. So I loved it.
Interesting.
I like the Valley.
I hope
It's good.
she's doing well. That's what I'll say. I
Yeah,
hope
me
she's
too.
doing well.
So Vanderpump Villa, they came to me. It's the same product. Below Deck recently was with 51 Wines. It kind of combined with Buna Murray, who does
Yeah.
Vanderpump
Okay.
Villa.
Hmm.
And I've worked with the casting there. And so they were asking me like, hey, can you do it? And I was actually doing Below Deck at the same time. And it's kind of in casting. I don't get why this matters, but they don't like when people do multiple shows. I get when you can't handle multiple things, but like I am a multitasker to the max.
Right.
And like, but they did it right, because since it was the same company, they went to the heads of Below Deck, said, hey, can we have Tracy on this? And so they got approval. So I was able to do both because they knew they needed guests, but it was a completely different genre, not genre, but like just, it
Vibe.
wasn't the same. They didn't really care about money.
Right.
They really were like, they wanted more younger, 20.
Mhm.
They didn't really want over 40, but it was the theme. It was much more scripted, right? So it was like, they wanted celebrations. So they wanted people, having a coming out party, people
Yeah, getting
having
engaged.
an engagement party, a bachelorette party. So we would get specific things of what they wanted. So it wasn't as easy as just finding guests with money. They just wanted, and then they would want like different ethnicities and all that. So, I mean, of course, I have my thousands of people that I had for Below Deck, which I would go to, but
Mhm.
that show, I would do a lot of research.
Many more
We also,
boxes to check.
right. And we also
Yeah.
had, they could fill out a form application. So we had a lot of people
I saw
applying.
that, yeah.
And when you do the second season, like I finished the second season's supposed to air soon. They're saying the third season, if it does well, is going to start. But
Love
the
that.
applications, we get more and more people that want to do, and they're like, I want to celebrate this and that. The hard part with that is then you have to interview the first person, and then you interview. Now I'm not a producer on that. Well, I have a producer title, but they just have me finding the people. So, which is fine because I'm also doing Below Deck. So it's hard for me to do, be the leads on two shows. So
Mhm.
I'm there just handing people for them to interview. But they interview each person separately, it's just a process.
In the group?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot. Yeah,
And then
I
sometimes
was.
like they're like, oh, we don't like this person's not good. You got to replace them,
How
Yeah.
does that go over in the bachelorette party, Tracy?
Right, right. You got to
Like,
replace
sorry,
your
girlie.
sister. She sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Right, right.
Oh, that's funny. Well, and
Yeah.
I mean, I was watching it today, just again, like catching up. And yeah, it was much more about kind of like story versus wealth. But are they still paying for the experience?
No,
Interesting. Okay, so it really does
they
all
get
come down to like the different
they
types of events and celebrations and like
right.
catering.
I
Okay.
mean, obviously they want people who you think
Have
would go, but yeah,
taste.
I think
Sure.
I want to say the first season they got paid, and the second season they didn't.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but they didn't have to pay. We covered their travel. It's a totally, and that's why I was like, this is cake, you know?
Right.
Any
Yeah,
show casting is
comparatively.
cake. And when you have to find people, and they just up the price on Below Deck like by 10 grand. So it's like, you just keep,
Inflation.
it's so hard. I know. It's tough. But yeah, no, they didn't have to pay. So that makes it a lot easier to find groups,
Right.
especially
Yeah.
20 and 30-year-olds, It's like, hey, do you want a free trip to Italy, or
Yeah.
France,
So
wherever.
so I imagine the approach on Vanderpump Villa is much more sort of personality centric, especially if you're interviewing each person.
Yes.
And how do you sort of keep that, the Vanderpump is sort of, it's its own brand, it's its own universe. So did you definitely have that in mind when you were looking at groups and people of like kind of
For
if they could
sure.
really bring that?
Yeah, because they kind of have to be. I feel like Vanderpump, you got to be sassy. You got to be.
Totally.
You need confident people. Definitely more of a look. They got to be hot. I feel like, you got to keep. I mean, obviously the staff they always will do hot, but yeah, it's a lot different than Below Deck for sure.
Mhm.
Because it's not like we were having families, and yeah, we wanted hot people. We wanted good personalities. They're more like, and they're a cast. They're more cast, right? Even though they're guests, they're not paying for the experience. So they are more cast members. So they're
Right.
being told what to do. And
Yeah. Oh, and so any big surprises there, like for season one, where you watched it back and were like, what in the world? Like, where did that come from? Or because it was a little more planned and formatted, did it not feel as much as a surprise?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I knew what everyone was celebrating. They had to come up with what like the things they wanted to do. So nothing was like shocking. I think that's why I love Below Deck so much, because you never know how they're going to be. Well, I kind of knew how these people were going to be.
Mm,
Also because they're kind of being produced a little bit.
Sure.
And I still, we made sure we didn't get any quiet, boring people on. So
Yeah. Yeah.
but it was still interesting. I mean, but you watch that show, and again, all the dramas with the crew. It's just like Below Deck,
Exactly. It's all about
Yeah.
those dynamics.
Yeah.
How does Lisa's an EP, like how does she influence the process? Is she the one kind of from the top down saying, I want this type of couple, I want this type of celebration? Is she influencing and shaping that a good bit?
I know she, I know she puts in, but she's so busy. I think she gets one of the final says. Like we'll send the groups over or the staff, and she will hear like, oh, Lisa loved this group, or I like one see. I don't know, it was last season. We were trying to find something with a dog, like a dog's birthday party,
course.
because she's so into dog.
Yep.
So, we would hear her notes, but basically, I think she would just sit and watch edits
Sure.
and let us know who she liked and who she didn't. But as far as I think the other execs came up, I don't think she's that deep into that process, like giving the ideas. I think maybe she would bring up we know she's huge LGBTQ, so we'd always want to have a story like that. And then we know she's big into dog rescue. So those were just given because we all watch,
right.
We all watch
know.
Vanderpump. Yeah, we
know all about
Vanderpump.
Vanderpump Dogs.
Right.
I love that. And Stassi, I think I saw that Stassi's going to be like a VIP guest season 2. Is that right? Is that what I saw?
You know what? I don't know. I saw that too. This is the thing with casting. They don't tell us anything. I
love it.
I don't know. I don't know if she's a guest because she wasn't in any of our casting groups.
Yeah. Or is she like a VIP? Like, is she like coming alongside Lisa with the crew, like with the staff?
Yeah, I wasn't told.
Yeah.
I love Stassi. I wasn't told anything. So I watch for Below Deck, I'm on all like the Instagram and Facebook groups. So I always see what they're saying. And they're like,
nice.
Kate's on the next Below. I'm like, is she? I don't know.
You're like,
I don't even know who the crew is. I'm like, that'd be amazing.
Oh my gosh. And all those decisions, like, there's so many cooks in the kitchen when it comes to stuff like that.
Right.
That by the time it gets past you, it's like, okay, whatever.
Well, and that's the sad thing in casting. We're kind of at the bottom of the barrel, which is it's
when
really
you're the
sad.
most when in unscripted and reality, you are the most important part,
and
you're everything.
We're treated like nothing, and it's sad. It's sad. We are. I mean, the show wouldn't be, like, yeah, I mean, there's the execs who watch it and go, yeah, they're good. They're not, I guess that's important. I mean, all roles are important, but yeah, casting is just never treated well. I don't think we ever have been, unfortunately.
It's so critical. And that's why I don't feel like people in unscripted get enough credit, and specifically casting. It's so critical and crucial to what we do. Every reality television star that you love was discovered by someone like you.
Right.
And that's we don't stick to the shows because of the plot. We stick it because we love Shep Rose and we love, like it's so, yeah. Tell me what are some like common misconceptions if we're going to talk about, your day-to-day job? Like, what are some common misconceptions you feel like people have about casting?
I feel like people think it's easy. I think people think like once you're like, I'm not an employee with Bravo or Below Deck. Like, I am an independent contractor. And while I've been working on that show for 10 years, I'm always down a couple months a year in between.
And wondering if it'll get renewed.
Right. Because I used to do 4 a season. Like, I never know. I get a lot of emails like, I want to be on the Housewives. I'm like, I don't work for Bravo. Like, I'm an independent contractor.
Yeah.
I think people
Very feast or famine.
Yeah. I was interviewing someone the other day and I was telling them how I moved and I bought a home because like to live in LA is just crazy. And I was able to buy a house. And she's like, how did you buy a house being a casting director? And I was just like, do you think I make minimum wage? Like, I make really good money.
Yeah.
like she was shocked I was able to buy a house.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay.
Well, and does that go along with, again, people's perspective when it comes to casting and it being, again, not considered a pillar of our industry, which is so crazy.
Right. Because it's like better to say, it's more important to be like, oh, I'm a producer on the show than to say I'm the supervising casting director, like, which I think is a very great title. Yes. But it doesn't matter. Nobody cares.
Yeah. Anyone who knows. Like when you're in, I think you, if you know, you know. So your day-to-day. Right. So like what does your day-to-day look like? Obviously a lot of stalking, a lot of creeping, a lot of emails, but like what is your day-to-day sort of day of the life look like for you?
So I usually start off with I do a Zoom with my casting producer and then we talk. I kind of give him we make a guest packet for Below Deck, so that has like the location, the link to the yacht, it has all the dates and the prices. So him and I go over that. I normally don't have location or hotel or yacht this, I wait a couple weeks. I do have a couple of it now, so I'll tell him, what to do. I have him create that. And then we make our grids, and then I'll start emailing. I have a Google Doc that's got probably over 10,000 emails from all the years I've done the show. And I email every season, every single person. I mean, I'll obviously BCC like 50 at a time, but I'll be like, hey, starting med, let me know if you're interested. And so I'll start doing that. And then I just get, as soon as people go, yeah, I got a group. Great. When can you Zoom? So I try to I pitch 3 groups every month to Bravo.
Okay.
So I have to pitch them. I pitch them 15 total, and we pick 9. Now the fallout is really big in this job because I get people who, once I send contracts, either don't want to sign them or freak out and go, oh my God, it's real. They're also dealing with 8 people's schedules, work schedules, families. So people, if they're splitting the cost and they're like, oh, we just lost a couple, we can't replace them. So I always have dropout. It's funny. My first pitch, I usually always have, they never get on. All 3 will drop out because they're like they're so far.
They're early in the process.
Early. Yeah, it's crazy. And they're always great. So if I have a great group, I'm like, I don't want to pitch you first because you'll drop. So yeah, I just kind of start the process. I'm still closing up the last season too. So.
Okay. So in that Bravo pitch, right, you said you edited down to like a 2-minute kind of sizzle of the group based on like your Zoom together.
Right.
And then what are you really trying to highlight when you're describing them? Are you like, what does that pitch kind of look like to your execs?
Yeah, I mean, basically I'll have there's a primary guest. I'll have them introduce themselves, kind of tell me what the group is. They always want to know why the group's coming on, because they want to make sure they're not like fans. But I always tell them, don't talk about the show. Half the people are like, I've never seen the show. There's always one fan, but it's fine. Sure. So, I'll talk about, are we coming on to celebrate a birthday, an anniversary, a proposal? Like I have that first. And then I just kind of do the fun, like, if they're cussing, I like to see the group dynamic. So I want to show them loud, they don't want them to be quiet and boring. I always ask them if they have any kind of like a rider, when you're in your dressing room, you have your rider of what you want, like the red M&Ms, all that. So I'm like, what's your rider for this? So then I will put those.
Cabin at exactly 68.5 degrees.
3,000 count, sheets,
right.
like just kind of, so I get that to show. So I want them to show that they're high maintenance, bougie. If you there's always one that's kind of, demanding and a little like annoying, but you can tell she's going to be trouble. So I'll always like highlight on that person. But yeah, I just kind of, my editor is really good. So I'll tell them sometimes, and sometimes I have to give them notes. I'll be like, take this out, put this in, I want them to talk about the water that they want to be, especially down under season. They really want more water stuff. So I want to make sure I have groups who are adventurous and, want to be doing water things. So yeah, it's kind of what I keep in all the good stuff.
That's so cool. Oh, I love that. My vote is the whole casting team needs to charter for free, and you guys need to have an episode together. How amazing!
Yeah, it's funny. Every group I interview, they're like, "You should come on with us." I'm like, "No, I'm good. I don't like to be on camera. I'll stay behind." Because they keep saying that producers keep saying to me, "Whenever you want to come," because I'm like, I've never been on location. They're like, just let us know when you want to come, we'll fly you out. But I'm waiting for like a location I want to go to, because like I don't want to go to the Caribbean. I've been there. I want to go to like Greece or Italy or something.
Yeah. I think the new White Lotus season, I don't know if you watch, is going to be in Mykonos.
Did it just end?
It just ended last night.
That was the final season. I did. I watched it, and I was like, wait, this is the ending? Yeah. I couldn't believe it.
I know.
I can't believe that dad didn't kill himself.
I know. Listen, I was actually going to ask you, how many Ratliff families have you had on the show?
You know what's funny? I find that the women are always more crazy than the men. I haven't really had.
But of course, yeah. How many? Yeah. So how many Parker Posies? How many Victoria Ratliffs? How many?
ton.
Lorazepam popping.
Well, you know, it's funny because Patrick Schwarzenegger, like we talk on Instagram because he likes Below Deck, and I'm trying to get him on, but he keeps going, I think I'd be boring. I was like, no, you wouldn't. You'd be great.
Not
So I like
anymore.
I messaged him. I was like, you're amazing on White Lotus. Yeah, I've got like random celebs like David Spade, huge fan. We message each other all the time on,
Come on.
but
Yeah.
he's just so busy. Chrissy Teigen loves it. Chrissy Teigen loves the show, but will not come on because
Yeah.
she's like afraid. It's really weird. And same
Yeah.
with Seth Rogen. He's a huge fan.
I love Seth Rogen. Are you watching The Studio?
I just started watching it, but I
It's
put
cute.
it on while I was working, and I'm like, it's a show I
Yeah.
need to watch and not work.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I finished
It's
White
nice
Lotus. It was
because
good.
the episodes aren't super connected. Like they're almost
Right.
like anthologies. Every episode is just like a story about like whose big
He-
cameo are we gonna do, and like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
fun.
yeah. No, I liked it. Do you watch Righteous Gemstones?
I watched season 1 and I need to watch
you
it
gotta
because it's filmed
watch
in
it.
Charleston and I'm from South Carolina. My
it?
husband's from Charleston, and I love like obviously Walton Goggins. Like if you want to get a
mean,
guest, get Walton Goggins. Oh my God, are you kidding? That'd be amazing.
I just love that show. I was watching it last night. It makes me laugh. Not many things
It's-
make me laugh out loud
Yeah.
in that show. It is fabulous.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, I mean, Patrick Schwarzenegger has like a supermodel fiance.
Yeah.
They would be a great, like, he could bring his mom
I was like,
on,
just get
his
your
dad.
family and we'll
Right.
get Chris Pratt and his wife.
Totally. It would be star-studded. That'd be
I
so
know.
fun.
Or
Oh,
get
so
his-
okay.
you're gonna have his dad.
Yeah. Okay. So wait, this leads me to my final question. One of my final questions. If you could create a dream charter group, famous, dead or alive, not famous, they don't even have to be related or know each other, but like, what would that group be for you?
I mean, you know what's funny? I actually would love to have like a dance group, like
Ooh, yeah.
like a dance, you know, like with the top
The
choreographers.
Jabberwockies. No,
Yeah, or you know, like just. Or
what about the
top
Huffs? What about like Julianne?
you know
Derek?
what? Well, I just had a dance group that had like Brian Friedman, but they were going to be a backup because they, you know, don't want to pay, and they were going to get the Huffs. They were trying to get Paula Abdul on. Like, I would love a
Yes.
dance charter. I think that would bring a
Totally.
totally different, you know, audience. Dance is such a huge thing. I mean, there's so many people.
Because they would just want to like vibe out and listen to music and dance, and I'd be like,
Right.
let's choreograph something on the boat.
Right.
Like that would be so fun.
No, they were saying that, like, well, we're gonna do like a routine as we get on the dock, and you know, I feel like I wish that Bravo would like let me comp a couple a season, and because I still could get though a lot of those dance choreographers, they've got money, they just don't want to pay, you know. But they're not gonna be like excited, and I mean they'll be excited, but they're so high maintenance and bougie. I would love a dance charter for sure. I mean, I feel like we've had athletes on, musicians. Musicians are kind of, I don't know. I don't feel like
Low-key.
they're that exciting. Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't want like what about like the Kelseys, like Travis Kelce?
Oh, the
Kylie,
Kelseys would be
Jason?
good.
That'd
You
be
know who
fun.
else? I was trying to get, my dream was I was trying to get like a 90210 charter because Jenny Garth's
Oh.
manager emailed me and she's a huge fan. And I was like, can you get Tori Spelling? Can we get Brian Austin Green? Like, that would be amazing, right?
Wait,
like a
the like
90s
reunion, like the nostalgic 90s
The
reunion
yes.
charter is speaking to me right now. I
Right.
mean, who's doing reboots right now? I'm trying to think of like in the NBC universe, what's getting rebooted right now and how could you cross promo that with Below Deck?
Right. Or I'd like to
Ooh.
do like I'm a huge into horror. So like
Ooh.
get like Skeet Ulrich and like Matt, you know, get like the Scream cast.
I was gonna say, yeah, some Scream queens
Like
on there,
Neve
and like have like
Neve
a
Campbell.
spooky
Right.
charter. That'd be fun.
Right.
Oh, how fun
I'm
is
trying
that?
to think who else. Like I would love an NSYNC charter because like Lance is.
Oh my God, are you kidding? I saw Justin in concert in November. Speechless. Love.
I know. I
Big
used so
fan.
it's just funny. I saw him twice. I went and saw him in Vegas. I took my older daughter, and then I went to Montreal because that's where my family's from. I took my cousin. He's just so good. I mean, I used to go to all his concerts and be like in the family section and be backstage. So, but I still enjoy it.
Yeah.
I just love him. And it was fun. A small, quick story. When I first told my daughter to move out to LA and get the job, I was driving her to work, and we worked at the Hollywood Production Center, and we were sitting in the office, and they did all these other movies and stuff. And so we were sitting there, and Justin walks by the door, and I was like, I think that was Justin. She's like, what? I was like, come on. So we like follow him to the parking lot, and he didn't have any security with him. And I was like, Justin. And he turns around. I was like, I don't know if you remember me. And he's like, oh my God. And I was like, I was waiting to see. He's like, yeah. I was like, this is Brittany. Like you played hide and go seek with her when she was like 3. And she was like 19 then. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, I feel so old. And he's like, how are you guys? And he was asking me about Wade. And I'm like, yeah, Wade moved to Maui. And he just sat and talked to us for like 15 minutes. Just the nicest guy.
Yeah.
And hugged us
Nice
both goodbye.
Tennessee
And
boy.
he was my favorite celebrity I've ever worked with. Like,
Oh,
then
that's
and
nice.
my daughter was like, "Is this what it's like to live in LA?" I said, "Yep."
Yeah, girl. You sold the
Yeah.
dream to her right
Yeah.
in that moment.
You see, yeah, because he's always been, he was always the guy that I always saw whoever treated me good was nice because I was the assistant to Wade at Wade's height when he was huge. And I had people who were horrible to me, like Christina Aguilera was awful to me. But Justin would always make it a point to come hug me and ask how I'm doing. And I was like secretly in love with him. I loved him, but
Duh.
I had to act cool. But he always
Yeah.
was just the nicest guy out of everyone.
That's nice
He's
to hear
just
because
great.
I really love him despite some of the other opinions. And I'm like, I need to only hear
Oh.
good things. I can't hear
Yeah, I
negative
love
things.
him. He's such a talented guy, man. He's just such a good dancer and a
Oh,
good
that's good to
singer.
know.
And I just love him. Yeah, he's
That's
probably
good
one
to
of my
know.
all-time favorites.
Well, and you mentioned, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand, but I feel like to wrap this up, you've had such an incredible career and you've talked about kindness, like being kind to the people you encounter because you never know. I mean, not only because, like, yeah, be a good human, but you never know when that person's going to go on to give you a call. So if there was sort of a cornerstone of your career, something that you always make sure you do to ensure that you are successful and have longevity, would that be it, you think?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think I've worked with so many awful people in casting, casting directors and that were just awful. And I just always said if I was ever in charge of a team, like I would never be off. And this is the thing, I love my job. I love what I do. And I feel like a lot of these people just do it for the money and they don't love it and they don't have the passion and they're lazy. They just take the paycheck. So I want to make sure I have a staff that I can trust and I thank them. And yeah, I know I'm a good person. I have a good heart, so I don't have to worry about it. But I also make sure if I work with people that are awful, I won't work with them again. Because I'm a Gemini too. So if you rub me the wrong way, I don't put it
Yeah.
up with it. So many people I've worked with are awful. Like I've got like 2 or 3
That's
go-to
crazy.
people. And like, I just won't. I mean, sometimes I give people a second chance, but rarely.
But I think you and I both know how lucky we are to work in this industry.
So lucky.
And
Like
so
there's
it's
some
crazy
crappy
when people
jobs out
don't,
there.
right?
They
It's
take
crazy when
advantage of
people
it.
don't see that and can't see that I have so many people who, I don't know, there's just so many talented, amazing people out there who would die to do what we do,
Right.
literally, and get away from their like corporate, job, whatever. And so I think when you live in
Right.
gratitude, like knowing how lucky you are, it's difficult when you see other people who don't feel that way.
Right.
I hope you know that, like, I see you and appreciate everything you do, and I know
Thank
so many
you.
people do, whether they know it or not. So
I want an Emmy. That's what I want. That's my last thing. We got nominated and I went to the Emmys,
yes.
but we didn't win. And I was like, oh, I want Below Deck casting to be nominated because it is the hardest job out there.
Absolutely.
That's like my ultimate goal.
I love that you put that out in the universe. I
Yeah.
strongly
No,
believe in
I'm
speaking
one
it
of those
out. I
you gotta
love
speak.
that.
Yeah, you gotta speak it. And I feel like I'm so passionate and I love what I do. And people who know me, like, listen, some people I'm sure on other shows think like I'm tough but I am tough. But
They wouldn't say that to a
the
man.
I've got the big right. I've got the biggest heart and I just work hard. And a lot of people are threatened because when I'm on I work for this big producer, Luke Conklin, and he's like known as like the hardest guy to work with. And he's like a workhorse, but I started game shows with him. And so I am a booking machine. Like I can book so fast. So when I get on with all these new people and they're booking like 3 a day and I'm booking like 20 to 25 a day, instead of them like, oh, how do you do that? Like I've been doing this my whole life. Like just I just want to do my job, you know? So
Right.
it's like, and I've had people call me like, "Hey, Tracy, you don't need to book as much. You can slow down." I'm just fast. Like, that's just
Right.
me. I'm not trying to do it to be number one. I'm not trying to do it to out book. I just am fast at what I do, and I'm
Well,
not
and you've
lazy.
honed
And,
in on your craft.
right.
Like
And I know
your
how to do it.
gut, your intuition,
Right.
you have like sharpened and honed in on. That is what is
Right.
allowing you to be so efficient and so fast.
Right. And so
So,
I find that people that ask me, sometimes I'll get some people, "Hey, can you like let me know your tricks or how you do it?" I like those people. The people who
mhm.
are like just, "Oh, well, Tracy's taking up all the spots." Like, I'm just like, whatever. I'm doing this is what I'm paid for. Like,
Right.
this guy has hired me for 8 years because he knows I book, I get the most on his shows. Like, this is why I'm not doing it to out book you or to be better than you. Cause most of the time I am better than you. Just
Right.
kidding.
It's just,
But
well, you're seasoned. And also,
right.
again, it all comes back to like, as you and I both know, shows aren't getting greenlit like they used to.
Mm-mm.
Like the jobs are down. So like in order to keep getting that call to come back, you have got to earn your position and
And you
be
got to go above and
irreplaceable.
beyond. You can't just
Absolutely.
do the minimum, you know? And that's why I feel
100%.
like I do get calls a lot, you know? So yeah, just be kind, love what you do and just be kind and work hard. It's not,
Very solid
there's
sage
no
advice.
egos. Yeah, there's no egos in this business. You can't have an ego. I'll go on Vanderpump Villa. I'm like technically an associate. I'm not like, I'm a producer, casting director, treat me like, I'm like, tell me what to find. I like look at it as a challenge and I love it and I want to find it. And I don't
Right.
care. And I will go when I do game shows. I never am a producer because you have to interview like 20 to 30 people a day. I like finding people. I like going to my
Right.
roots, you know? But yeah, I just feel like you got to, if you love what you do, and we're so lucky to be in this business.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It was so
Of
awesome to chat with
course.
you, and I'm so inspired again by just your work ethic and love kind of the behind the curtain that you've given for some of our favorite shows. So thank you again for
Of
coming on,
course.
and
No, thank you for
super
having
excited to
me.
see what's next on Vanderpump Villa and on the Below Deck franchises. And we'll know next time we see our favorite guest that that's all your work. So
All
thanks so
me, right.
much.
No, thank you for my first podcast. That was exciting.
I'm so
Thank you
glad.
for
Thanks so
having me.
much. I was eating up all the boy band Justin Timberlake stories, guys. That was so much fun. Again, casting doesn't get enough love, doesn't get enough appreciation. It is the backbone of our industry. And just so happy that I can have these brilliant people on to talk more about their process, their creativity, and what they do. I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I've got even more fun guests for you coming up. Thank you again so much for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, rate, review. Every little bit matters. It all counts. Thanks again so much for listening. Have an amazing weekend, and we'll see you next Friday on The Unscripted Files. The Unscripted Files is brought to you by Good Gravity Entertainment. Thank you to producer Bonnie Adams, original music by composer William Wright, artwork by Lisa Schweikert, and photography by Reid Schick.